It is Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, and you have tuned in to Litvak Leadership Live, where we talk all about personal improvement, understanding yourself, improving, and how that adds to your leadership skills, and frankly, how leadership is about helping others, and ultimately it will help you. I've got a real special guest tonight. His name is Christopher Rausch. Gosh, I hope I'm saying it right. I feel like I've known him forever because he's forever in all my social media scrolls. Christopher's a great guy. He has got a level of intensity that you are going to appreciate. He is the no excuses coach, which is why our topic tonight, excuses are the drink of many in society, is perfect for him. But before I bring him out, let me ask you, are you following Litvak Leadership on all the social media listed below? If not, why not? The number one place you should be following Litvak Leadership, if you're not already, is YouTube. I post a video there every single day about personal improvement, understanding yourself, and leadership. And if you're having a blessed day, then you get to see Solomon the Golden in my videos also. Additionally, and here we go. Chris is already jumping in with comments. I'm not used to a guest putting comments up. This is good. You are like on top of it. So let me just bring Chris out. Welcome to Litvak Leadership Live, Christopher. How are you?
What's going on, Sean? I'm doing awesome, man. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. I appreciate you, man. And I'm excited to be here and dance in conversation with you, talking about my favorite subject of no excuses.
No excuses at all. But before we get into that, tell me, is the background you have there a background, or are those actual guitars hanging behind you?
Oh, that's just a green screen. That's just a green screen.
Oh,
no, it's the real deal. And here's the truth. Here's the truth, Sean. On this, I've had so many people compliment me on this. God is my witness. I didn't create this background with the idea I would ever be filming in front of it. I never did. I turn around and I have if you can see it, I have a metal plate back there with stuff stuck to it. So I do work back there. So I never had it imaged for this. And I never had the lights. Those were just there because I like neon. And then all of a sudden I started doing my podcast on video during COVID. And I just said, well, I guess I'll do it right here. I have different ways I could position the camera. I have a cool studio, but I just kept it right here. And everybody's like, oh my God, you have the perfect setup. I'm like, it just naturally showed up that way. So thank you, my brother.
It just kind of happened. It's very bright, and the guitars are just phenomenal to be there. So do you play?
Yeah, I play a little bit. Actually, my son's 6 years old, and I found myself, I periodically practice, and then I get fed up. I have a boxer's fracture in my left hand. When I was about 12 years old, I punched a brick wall and I lost, and it fractured all the metacarpals in my hand. So when I play left-handed, when I go to play chords, these two fingers don't agree very well. So it's frustrating. So I get to a point where I'm good, and then I just kind of give up. But because I have a son now, congruency with me is everything. So I am practicing every night for 15 minutes while he does his homework. Poor guy has to do his homework to daddy playing his chords that he knows. But I made it a personal commitment of mine to not give myself any excuses anymore, and to continue practicing when that left hand starts giving me some trouble, and at least learn how to play some 4-chord songs. Like, there's so many songs out there that you can sing, that you can play 4 chords and get everybody on the campfire singing, Eagles tunes and stuff like that. So I'm not giving up, Sean. I'm not giving up this time. So thank you for asking. Yeah, I love guitars. I love music. Music is my go-to for everything, like mental health, everything. It's music is based right there to equalize my mood wherever I'm at.
So often as I'm driving, I'll be listening to motivational podcast or YouTube or something to educate myself. And the other day, for the first time in forever, I put on Spotify, and it has this new function where it's the Spotify AI DJ.
Oh, wow.
And it picks the songs you've hit like on, and then it picks similar songs, and it acts as a DJ. So Sweet. It's pretty cool. I'm getting myself back into music again. All right, Randy's here. Two of my favorite.
What's up, Randy? Good to see you, brother. So 2 of my favorite peeps right here. 2 of my favorites right here. Thank you.
I like to start with scripture, so I'm going to put you on the spot. This is from Proverbs 12. Okay. Whoever loves instruction loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof, which is gentle, kind correction, okay, is brutish. So tell me, what does that have to do with excuses in life?
What does that have to put me on the spot? That's a very interesting situation. I appreciate that, Sean. So let me just revisit that again. I just got to pull it out in front of my camera. So whoever loves instruction loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is brutish. I would have to say, you're thinking about my life and thinking about the fact of what I do and the fact I teach. I would look at the fact that when we're seeking that knowledge, part of that knowledge is to be able to get feedback for what it is that we're doing to find out whether or not we're doing things well enough. So me being a student of people for most of my life and trying to find out and understand what makes people tick and what really gets to the root of the problems that they're facing the most, because I believe society really deals with the symptoms of things instead of the root causes of things.
Absolutely.
So I think that when you operate in a state of pure curiosity, as though we are kids, right? We're still these little boys and little girls in big adult bodies. I've proven that beyond a shadow of a doubt. We remain curious about the things that we're learning. We remain curious to giving feedback on those things. We're going to be sooner to learn and sooner to enjoy. And I think that's the difference between that other aspect of what you're quoting and talking about the reproof is brutish, is the fact that people who operate out of an egoic standpoint, who sit there and find, how dare you tell me what to do? I see the delineation between that proverb in the same thing, what I deal with in coaching. Like sometimes I turn people down because they say they want to get better, but I can tell they're coming at it from such an egoic spot that they're not willing to address those root causes, those problems that have probably made them very successful in life. I've coached people out of their demons to the point where they're so scared that they're not going to be successful in business anymore because that's what made them successful in business. And I said, that was just a stepping stone to get you where you're at. I said, now you're ready to rock your business by having that authentic self-confidence. So that's what I believe it is. I would love to get your perspective on that same proverb.
Frankly, I think you nailed it. That you have to love instruction and love knowledge, and instruction teaches you things. Knowledge is something the difference between wisdom and knowledge is knowledge is something that comes to you over time, okay? Or there's supernatural knowledge where you end up knowing something that there was no way you could know it, but knowledge can also come to you because of things that you have studied over time. And an individual that doesn't like correction, even gentle correction, is just a brute that they can't get beyond themselves. So I think you explained it far more eloquently than I just did, and in a deeper sense. So I applaud you, man. That was great.
I probably couldn't have done that 10 years ago. I would have been, I don't understand what the hell that means. No, that's all good.
So you are the no excuses coach. And,
yes,
I feel like there is a kindredness because, the theme of my book is the subtitle, You Must Understand Yourself and Improve if you desire leadership that produces success in others. And, Christopher had me on his live stream where we talked about my book. And, when you talk about understanding yourself and improving, if someone isn't willing to understand themselves, I think they're just making excuses. What do you think?
Oh, dude, Sean, big time. Yeah. If they're not receptive to digging into the weeds of what it is that's caused them the angst and the hostility and the resentment that's plaguing their life, if they're not ready to deal with that or take responsibility for it, and take responsibility in just the healing part, you don't have to take responsibility for your part in it necessarily, but that's part of that healing journey. And I've seen people who have been at their wits' end, and I've known that they're not going to come at it from an egoic standpoint. And I've also seen people that say they want to say, although I'm seeing a coach, I'm getting this under wraps, but they don't really truly want to change. That's why I finally went with that no excuses coach moniker. Was I wanted people that had been able to game coaches before to know that they weren't going to game me. And I've had a few people sit there and say, well, I've been a pretty slippery person in my previous coaching. And I'm like, well, you're talking to me now. I'm not going to let you slip because you're paying me not to let you slip. And I enjoy helping you not slip anymore.
Well, so, and isn't that like a huge red flag? I mean, when I engaged with a coach at one point about a little over a year ago, and, I paid the man American money. Okay. And I paid him, a significant American money from my perspective. It was my first coaching engagement, but it was real live cash. It was over 3 months. And why would someone want to be slippery? I mean, when we had a coaching session, I would show up prepared, having considered what he told me to think about, and come with even more information, sometimes even too much. And he'd be like, dude, the reason you're frustrated is because you're trying to do too much. I mean, what do you do when someone comes to you and says, oh yeah, I've had a bunch of coaches and I've been slippery, or some other nonsensical thing?
The first thing I ask him, Sean, is what is it about your situation now that's different? What has shifted in your perspective about wanting to get out of the true healing and wanting to actually heal? And so then I could, based on their body language, I could tell whether or not they're telling me the truth from that point. Well, Chris, I just had another person leave me, my company's not doing so well. If there's enough leverage in there, if I believe there's enough leverage to work with, when you find a big enough why, when you have a big enough why, you have a big enough how. And so if there's a big enough why in what these people want to do, mostly people who have gotten away with it for most of their life, they're pretty successful, but they're what I call comfortably miserable.
Sure. And
Excellence.
One of us is just
Not My Zone of Genius, if you know anything about The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And it ultimately has to come back down to, again, what is your why? And when you have that why that's clear enough, then you use that as that leverage to be able to change what it is that's no longer working for you. And so that's what I get people to do. And if they're well, I have to, I just can't keep going on like this. Okay, why? Well, but why? Because I feel inferior to my colleagues. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Let's be honest. Let's be honest, because as soon as you're honest with yourself, there's such a sense of relief to say, I don't have to fucking carry that shit around with me anymore. I don't. I let it go. I'm just going to be me. And I've been on that journey myself. That's why I am such a great coach, because I've been through a ton of what most of my clients have been through. And if I haven't, I've coached people through that. What's up, Eric?
Well, and when people don't understand their why, I mean, it's like this. I've had a long day today. And I was telling my wife about an hour and a half ago, I was like, part of me just wants to cancel tonight. I said, but I can't do it because I know this is important for the goal that I have set out in front of me. And if I really want that goal, I need to have Litvak Leadership Live tonight.
I'm proud of you, brother. I'm proud of you. I get those same times. I was just talking to somebody earlier today about the power of music, and that sometimes when I do my shows on Tuesday nights, it's 7:00 and I've had a long day. I used to do 7:00 was perfect because I worked my corporate job and I had enough time to get home.
Right.
But sometimes I sit down, I'm like, oh God, I got to, but then I listen to some music and I just shift my perspective, because there's never been a time where I've interviewed, there's maybe one or twice, in 3 years, where I was like, okay, that was a shit show. It's okay. That's why I now preview my guests before I have them straight on the show, because I've had people that I didn't know on the show and they couldn't hold a sentence together to save their life. So it was just pretty much a car crash. But now I sit there and I use music just to listen to a couple of songs, and also my energy changes. I get excited about what's going to develop out of this conversation. What can I get the person to share that they've never shared before? And I switch those bells and whistles, and it becomes part of that bigger why. And then I have a great time with it. So that's just we all have those situations. It's just a question of what tools do we use and how quickly do we choose to use them, as opposed to going down the victim route.
So do you think that most people don't know what their why is, and they're just kind of careening through life like a silver ball in a pinball machine, from situation to situation to situation, never really because without your why, you can't you may have dreams, but you can't have goals. You got to have a why to have goals. Do you agree?
Oh, 1,000%, 1,000%. You're hitting the nail on the head, Sean. So many people are existing in life. I try to keep things as simple as I possibly can. There's people who are living life and they've jumped. They're jumped into their life. They're living their life. They're going places. They're experiencing the joys of life. And then you got people who are existing in life. They're playing the someday game. Oh, someday when the kids are out, someday when the husband does this, someday when the wife does this, someday when the government does this, someday, then I'll be happy. Then I'll do these things. And what those people are doing, those people are eloquently coming up with perfect excuses for them to fail and for them to be miserable, and perfect opportunities for them to have a ton of regrets later on in life. What they ultimately have to do is sit there and decide, what do I want to be remembered for most from my experience being a human? What do I want to be remembered for the most? And then wake up every single day, guys, and go fulfill that meaning, that purpose, that legacy, because we don't know how many more years or months or summers or seasons of the year we're going to ever have. And when we get serious about that, and you wake up every single day with the intention, like, I'm going to go out there and use my words and my actions to make this world a better place. I say that every single day. I'm using my words and my actions to make this world a better place. I'm present and playful with my son. There's so many different intentions that I set. When you start living in the moments as opposed to living in the future where you're playing the someday game, life becomes amazingly satisfying and enjoyable right where you're at. Because if you think you're going to be happy with more stuff later on down the road without fixing what's up in here, you're going to be sadly mistaken. I've talked to rock stars and actors and actresses and all sorts of famous people, millionaires, billionaires, and they all have the same thing in common when they tell me, Chris, the money and the fame and everything else that comes with it is great. I love being able to buy whatever I want, but it didn't fix what was going on in here. And now I still have to deal with it. And all these other complications in my life that are preventing me from doing that because I'm afraid if I fix this, I'm going to lose this. What do you think about that?
And the one place where I will softly disagree with you, and I think when I bring it up, you'll say that makes sense, is that we have to live in the here and now, but we also have to look to the future. Because if we're just focused on the now and we're not looking at, scripture says in Hebrews 11:1, faith is the substance of things hoped for, and hope in the New Testament means expected. So faith is the substance of things expected, the evidence of things not seen. Well, you've got to have a vision, all right? And that why needs to be a vision and a goal. So you can live in the here and now looking at where you are, what you're doing, but it needs to be launching you. Okay, your why needs to be that shining light at the end of the tunnel to get you up off your chair and do something.
Yes, you are setting me up perfectly, Sean, because I love what you just said right there. And it's almost like we prepared this. What I did for myself in order to have that clear vision was back in 2008. And I may have told you about this before, was back in 2008, very successful at corporate, very successful as a coach and a speaker. At that point, I was still a suit and tie speaker. I had not done the kick-ass thing where I'm just being myself.
Right.
And I went to a funeral, and I was sitting in the back of the church, and I was watching all these my fellow coworkers eulogize somebody who passed away that we worked with. And it suddenly dawned on me, and I said, if I die, I asked myself in my head, if I died tomorrow, who would show up and what would they say? Who would show up and what would they say? That's a pretty profound question to come up with and thinking about yourself when you're 31 years old, I think I was.
Yeah.
And it kind of stuck with me. And I sat there and I thought about it. I'm like, about 10 or 15 people would show up. They would bring cases of Miller Genuine Draft Beer and bottles of Jack Daniel's whiskey, and they would bring Motley Crue and Bon Jovi records. And all of these 10 or 15 people would proceed to do is talk about all the stupid stuff that Chris did. Remember that time he did this? Remember that time he did this? Because I did a lot of crazy stuff. Oh, remember that time he chased that girl? Oh, yeah, he was a seventh grade homeless dropout who lived in the backseat of a station wagon with 18 cats and 4 dogs and ultimately got a master's degree and changed the world. I figured I didn't want my proscript of my eulogy be, oh, yeah, he did all this stupid stuff that made us laugh, but he actually had a profound impact in the world. So when I got home, I wrote my eulogy. One of the most profound experiences of my life. I sat down, I wrote my eulogy. And when I got done with it, I read it back out aloud to myself. And halfway down the page, I started crying. And I did not expect this. I didn't think I wrote that great of a eulogy. But as I read it back to myself, I thought, wow, to live this life and to be so proud of living this life, that's what got me choked up, was, okay, I'm going to make it a mission every day to fulfill this legacy so that if this is my last day, and this is the last conversation I ever have, my son can look at this and go, was dad living his mission, his purpose? 1,000%. So everything I do and every conversation that I have is a part of that legacy. So to your point, Sean, that's exactly, I see the vision of who it is I'm going to be remembered for, and I live it every single day. So that if God forbid today's my last day and this is my last conversation, I know as I'm transitioning that I was on point with what it is that I want to accomplish while I was here. What are your thoughts on that? Having that clear vision.
Randy says we must engage versus exist. And yep. I met Randy during COVID, and if there was ever a time that the whole engage versus exist was occurring, it was during the height of COVID, where you had some people going, I'm just waiting for it to be normal again. Yeah. And then the other people going, all right, let's leverage this so we can get somewhere.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. I've known Randy for a while too. Yeah, and you're right, Randy. It's the same thing, engaging versus, I call it living versus existing. Like, so if you're living, obviously engaging because you're out there being curious, you're being playful, you're being interactive with life. So 100%, Randy, I agree.
And then Shannon brought up,
what's up, Shannon?
My why is people who tell me I can't do what I want to do. No better motivation for me. I'll do anything to make it happen. And you know,
and take pictures of it too. By the way, take pictures of it too. That's my little middle finger. When people say I can't do anything, I say I'll do it twice, and I'm going to take pictures of it.
You know, that reminds me what Shannon brings up, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but when I remember there was a speech, and you know, I wasn't even born when JFK was assassinated, but there's a famous speech where he said, "Ask not what your government can do for you, but what you can do for, or ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." And I think it is, you can take that and overlay it into your own personal goals. You know, ask not what other people can do to make me a success, but what can I do to help other people succeed?
Yes, 1,000%. I am successful because that's one of the intentions that I set early on, was to make other people successful by associating with me. So if I'm the best person that provides you this, and you have a decision whether or not you have me or somebody else, I always want to be the best. So I wholeheartedly agree with that.
So when we look at, and I had some great notes here, and of course, since I'm squinting light like you, and we all know why we squint. So, you know,
here, you can borrow my readers. Here's my readers.
And you're frozen right now, so I can't see your readers. Hopefully in the replay, you're not frozen.
I'm not frozen.
This scripture has like really rocked my world. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be given to you. It's from Matthew 6:33. And you know, I know everyone is not a scripture person, but at the same time, when you don't know what to do, or when you're saying, what should I do? Everybody prays at some point. Well, why wait until the walls are falling around you? Why wait until the ceiling is falling in? Why not go to God and say, hey, God, beloved, hey, God, what about this plan that I've got? What do you think? And sit back, shut up, and listen. Do you ever talk to people in your coaching about, you know, because you and I have talked, and you know, you said scripture isn't your thing, but do you talk to people about supernatural unctions at all, or listening within themselves?
Yes, 100%. I love what you're talking about. Yes. Michael Singer, an amazing author, wrote 2 books. One of them's called The Surrender Experiment, and the other one's called The Untethered Soul. And he just wrote another book called The Untethered Soul. Brilliant guy. He was probably one of the few that really, like Dr. Wayne Dyer. Dr. Wayne Dyer 20 years ago was the first person that got me to look at spirituality and not go, what are you talking about? That's all bullshit. Right. When I tuned into a PBS broadcast where I was house sitting somebody's house and they didn't have cable, so I was forced to watch this thing. And I just really got drawn into the way he talked about spirituality. And in the same way, and thinking about, sorry, I just lost my train of thought when I looked up at my driveway. What was the question again?
So the question is, for me, when I want to gain clarity on a daily basis, I go into scripture. I pray to God. I listen to what Jesus can personally say to me. I know everyone doesn't do that particularly. I know some people will rely on other ways of doing that in a supernatural sense. And for all my Christian friends out there, do not think that I am advocating going to other familiar spirits, but at the same time, I know things for people are a process. So do people come to you and say, hey, God told me to do this, or I have a feeling of supernaturalness that I should be moving in this direction? How do you counsel and coach people when they come and bring that to you?
Got you. Thank you for redirecting me. Sorry, I looked up at my dry erase board and something snapped in my brain about something. No, I love what you're saying. So those 2 books from Michael Singer, he talks about being in the seat of the observer. And that's what I was trying to get at. So he talks about the fact that we are not our thoughts. We are not the things in our brain, that we are the observer of those things. And so he talks about how to detach from that and to kind of see those experiences like, wow, that's really interesting. I'm glad I had that thought, or wow, that was really interesting. Where did that come from? And so to your point, I've had people, for me personally, I learned it probably about 13, 15 years ago as the whisper, right? Turn right here. Don't go straight, Chris. Turn right here. What was that? You kind of get that little second voice in your brain, like, go to that checkout line, whatever it might be, don't order the same thing as you did all the other times. That little whisper, I believe, is our soul's voice talking to us, or it could be God, source, universe, however you want to think that. I think about that in terms when people come to see me and say, oh, Chris, I feel like I'm being called to do this. Okay. Talk to me about that calling. Where did that come from? For me, yeah. I know that ultimately all places lead from the heart. So whether it's God, what God told me, what my soul told me, whether I heard a whisper, whatever it might be, then I ask them about their attachment to seeing that goal realized. So on a scale of 1 to 10, you can't pick 7, 10 being absolute. What's your scale of discipline that you're going to apply to make this thing happen? Oh my God, Chris, I feel like if I don't make it happen, then I'm denying God's will, or I feel like if I don't make it happen, then my life will be a total waste. Okay. I want to work with those people. Those people are ready to sit there and say, okay, I know I've said I don't have enough time, but I realize that J-Lo has the same 24 hours in a day. I realize LeBron has the same 24 hours a day. I realize X, Y, and Z have the same 24 hours in a day. Now I'm willing to dedicate myself. Now I'm willing to get vulnerable. And that's what I look for in people. So to your point, yes, I mean, we all got to hear that whisper in our brain, that one that says, I'm not happy in this relationship. You've been miserable for 10 years. I've talked to so many people, Sean, who, when I've helped them change careers or I've helped them out of a terrible relationship, inevitably, these people come back to me. It may be right away, or it may be 6 months down the road. Every single one of them says, man, I wish I would have listened to myself 10 years ago. And that's that voice. That's that voice. We got to listen to that stuff, guys. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be hard, and it's going to be hell, but it's going to be worth it on the other side when you make those tough decisions.
So when you talk about people saying, I wish I would have done that 10 years ago, I'm 57, you've got some gray, so I'm not sure how old you are, 54. But
54.
54. Okay. So we are definitely in the same zone. Yep. And, we're both pursuing things, and I'm sure both of us, at least I know I do, and I'm guessing the same about you. We have goals beyond what we are doing today. And I look at Colonel Sanders, who it wasn't until he was in his 60s that KFC, he really just started. I'm sure you've heard the story of that. 100%. And speak to the audience now, people who are sitting here watching this and going, it's too late for me because of this situation, whatever age they are. It's too late for me because of this physical problem I got. It's too late for me because of my age. Because I will tell those people, get up out of their chair. What do you say?
Same thing. Love this question. Great question, Sean. And I hope people take this to heart. I think about it in terms of like, when's the best time to plant an oak tree? 25 years ago or today? So right. I'm thinking about that. So yes, when I think about, time and longevity and everything else, and people saying like, oh my God, it's too late. Suspend your belief for a second and think about the technology advancements that are happening at the current pace of what's happening, and think about, okay, I'm 54. So, okay, if I live to be 78, I've got, 24 more years left, like 24 more summers. I mean, that's kind of shocking when you sit there and think about it. But when I readdress that and think, if I live to be 140 or 110, let's just say 110, if I live to be 110 and I'm 54 now, like, what's the math on that? That's 56 more years.
56 more years.
56. I'm doing math faster these days. 56 more years. I mean, that's a lot of time. When you think about now I'm 54. That's more. I'm only halfway through my life. I'm only halfway through. I'm just barely getting started. And I tell people, either way, the time is going to go by. Either way, the time's going to go by. Do you want to be on point? Again, thinking about that legacy that you want to leave, being excited about that curiosity. I'm constantly excited about what makes people tick. Like I'm constantly enthusiastic about what statement, what question can I ask to bring about the biggest amount of thinking and perspective shifting that I possibly can. So I wake up every day excited about that. And I know till the day I die, I will wake up excited about trying to figure out what are the 3 questions I can ask somebody that by asking them will change their life. Right. And I think about that. I believe there is a way when you word a question in such a way that you can get people to change their life in 3 questions or less. And so,
You
yes,
know,
I believe it. I believe in what you're saying, and that we have to be excited about every day waking up, whether you're 70 or 80, whether you have the physical limitations or not. I would ask myself and invite myself, okay, what's this physical limitation all about? Is this something that is stored trauma from my childhood? And yes, I do believe in those things now. So go seek a healer and find out, for me, Sean, my right shoulder used to be always tense. And I would catch it. I'm like, why is my shoulder tense? Like, I'm not going to get hit.
right.
Peeling back the onion, going back to when I was 9 years old, I had to do this. I got beat by my mom almost every day. So that arm is, and that was from 40 years ago that my arm was still tensed. And once I realized that I don't need to tense my arm anymore, my mom's not going to hit me. It started relaxing big time. Every once in a while I catch it a little stiff, but from where it was, it used to be higher. Just recognizing that I subliminally was waiting to get punched.
Well, and what you talk about, it's things happen over time. I mean, it's interesting. So as a child, I was raised Jewish, and every week we would go to Sunday school. All right. And when we were kids, we would bring in a quarter that to donate to a fund that was sent to Israel to plant trees in the desert. Okay. So this went on all through grammar school, all through high school, bringing in money so there would be a forest someday in Israel. And we used to laugh about this. Well, Israel now has some of the luscious forest land of anywhere. For thousands and thousands of years, it's a barren desert. And then for what, 30 years or however long it was that all these kids in Sunday school and people are donating money to bring in the water, set up aqueducts, do whatever's got to be done. And now there's a forest. And when you think about it in the big picture, like you're saying, 56 years for you to get to 110, 63 years for me to get to 120. What if what someone wants to do now, it takes them 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and they're going to live to be between 110 and 120. Isn't that time worth invested?
Oh, 100%. What you're talking about, Sean, is the journey. So many people that I talk to, again, going back to the successful people I've talked to, many of them saying getting to that pinnacle of success, the fame, the fortune, the accolades and everything else. Sure, it's great for 6 months, but what they realize that they miss is the grind. They miss the hustle. They miss the everyday. How can I get a little bit better at sales? How can I get a little bit better at contracts? How can I get a little bit better at investing? How can I get a little better at Bitcoin? It was always about that refinement of how we can do that. So whether those days are going to pass either way, hopefully for you, if you're lucky enough. I say that when you wake up every single day and you're inspired and you are on purpose and you have passion and you have that inner discipline to continue to go through the tough things to get where it is that you're going, irregardless if you ever get there, you're enjoying the journey. And that's what it goes back to, again, being in those present moments. Like so many people are thinking about, oh, I'll be happy when, or they're beating themselves up for the 70,000th time for something they did 20 years ago. And I ask people, like, what would it feel like if you didn't carry that baggage around with you anymore? What would happen how do you think you would feel? What things would you accomplish if you let all of that stuff go? And people sit there, and I watch their physiology. Oh my God, Chris, if I didn't carry all that guilt and that shame around with me, oh my God, then I would probably feel empowered to go after acting or go do this crazy thing or change my career. People got to live now. And that's why I highly encourage everybody, like, have that big why, have that big mission. But the most important thing aside from that, Sean, is who you surround yourself with. Like if you hang around with a bunch of people who are those negative Nellies, like I watched Fox News again today and gosh darn it, those Democrats are going to, or I watched CNN today and those, if you're hanging around those people that are bitching and pissing and moaning about life and watching the news and thinking the world's going to stop tomorrow, you need new people. You need 5 people around your team, right? Somebody you trust, somebody who empowers you, somebody who holds you accountable, somebody who is your mentor. You need a team of people. They cannot be the same person. And most people out there, Sean, have one person for everything. And I'm like, what if that one person dies? What if that one person that you need a team of people who are smarter and brighter that you invest in, that are really concerned about making sure that you can, if you're calling excuses on yourself, that they can sit there and say, no, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Stop doing that. Right. And that's what people hire me for.
And you talk about a team of people during COVID. I got involved in Megamind, which I'm sure you've heard people talking about this. If you know Randy, it's, an ad hoc mastermind group of different people from the US and Canada. And we all support each other in various things and we train each other. I've recently joined a group with 2 other Christian men because frankly, I wanted to get in a group with business people from a Christian perspective. Sure. And have that faith element involved. Not me dogging Megamind by any means, but like you said, you've got to have different people in your life. And I knew that I needed that Christian businessman's perspective to look at things that way. Like you were also talking about, so many people are concerned and just having a negative attitude. I think lots of people get caught up about tomorrow. Matthew 6:34, therefore take no thought about tomorrow, for tomorrow will take thought about the things itself. Sufficient to the day is the trouble thereof. It's a mouthful. And what this basically says is, why are you so focused on what could happen bad tomorrow? Why don't you do something about it today instead? That's what I look at. And I want to.
Can I say something to that? Can I say something to that?
Yes, go ahead.
I love that. I love that. And I can't remember who said the quote, but today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday. Was it worth it? Today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday. Was it worth it? And I've personally picked myself out of so many pity parties because I'm like, I was worrying about that and it didn't matter. Like, okay, either way, it is what it is. I teach my clients, like, the sooner you face whatever it is that is fact in your life. Okay, I'm being tax audited. I'm being foreclosed. My business is, whatever it is. Once you get serious about saying it is what it is this. Okay, now what am I going to do about it? Ignoring it, going to my short-term gratification, praying, hoping, wishing, all that stuff is not going to do anything. I accept that I'm in this situation now. What can I do that by doing so will net me the most positive outcome? I need to take care of myself. So number one, I should be taking care of myself. What do people most do in crisis? They go to their short-term gratifications. They burn themselves out. They go to alcohol. They do all that binge stuff to be able to ignore what it is.
They drink.
Yeah, they got to sit there and take care of themselves. You got to work out. You got to journal. You got to meditate. You got to talk to friends and people. That's the second thing you got to do. The third thing you got to do is, okay, what are the top 3 things that I could do by doing so? Maybe I can avoid whatever this is. Now I've got a clear head and I'm taking care of myself. Most people make reactionary decisions based on those emotions, and what happens? They make knee-jerk reactions. So when you give yourself that moment of clarity, like, I'm just going to give myself tomorrow the day off. I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to go for a bike ride. I'm going to go for a run. Whatever it is, I'm going to give myself some time away from this and make a rational decision that makes sense for the greater good of my legacy that I want to leave. So it all ties back together, and Sean.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And where was the statement? Okay. From Eric, how can you stay excited about life and things? Life is beating me up right now. So my immediate answer is, 1, get in the Word of God. All right. You should have some go-to scriptures that are motivational. I will give you one right now. If you are saying, well, where do I start? It's from Jeremiah. God said, for I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord, plans for peace and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. So God didn't make no junk. Now, going to the Word is one way to motivate yourself. But what Chris also talked about is who you surround yourself with. I would add, what are you watching? What are you reading? What are you listening to? Chris, launch.
Eric, thank you for asking that question, brother, because I know there's a lot of people out there struggling right now. So I love that. So just to paraphrase back for people listening on the audio podcast, how can you stay excited about life and things? Life is beating me up right now. So the first thing I would look at is the second part of that equation. Life is beating me up right now. What is life doing to you? Life isn't doing anything. What you're doing is you're reacting to the situations in life and you're beating yourself up. So the first thing you want to do is you want to change the way you're talking about yourself, and you want to change the way you're talking about your situation. If you're using words like always and never, like I always do this and I never get it right and I always screw up and I'm never going to be successful. If you're doing stuff like that to yourself, that's what's going to cause you to have that mediocre existing in life kind of mindset. But when you shift that around and you sit there and think about it from a term, if you were 6 years old, think about this, Ed. Eric, if you were thinking about this and you're 6 years old, what would you do? You would become curious. You would become resourceful. Think about it when you were a kid. You didn't know how to make a ramp. You used something else. You constantly were innovating in your mind when you were a kid. So look at the situation as a 6-year-old. What would a 6-year-old say about the situation you're in? And then cause yourself to sit there and have a different perspective on things, because so oftentimes our reticular activation system in our brain, which is called the RAS system, it's kind of like this. If I tell you to look around your room and see everything that's blue, you're going to look around and go, okay, that's blue, that's blue, that's blue, that's blue, that's blue, that's blue. And then I sit there and I'll say, okay, Eric, tell me what was green. You're going to be like, Chris, you told me to look at what's blue. I didn't notice what was green. The same thing in life. If we focus on what's not working in our life, we are going to surely see more of that. But, and here's the big but, or however you want us to look at it. When you start looking at what you're grateful for, like the first thing in the morning I do before my eyes open, I say what I'm grateful for. The second thing I do before my eyes open is I say what my intentions are. So I'm grateful for the air that I breathe. I'm grateful for another beautiful night's sleep in this beautiful bed. I'm grateful I get to wake up and my family's still here. I'm grateful I have electricity. I'm grateful I get to impact the world today with my words and my actions. And then the next thing I set is my intention. My intention is this, my intention is that, so that when I'm going throughout the day and I find myself potentially going down a pity party hole or going down a negative rabbit hole, which I do, I just have the mechanisms now in place that I don't spend 2 weeks down there. I spend an hour down there and I go, oh, wait a minute, Chris, you're going down a rabbit hole again. That doesn't make any sense. What do you shift and focus on? I focus on what I'm grateful for. So I attract more of that into my life. And so I understand what you're saying right now, brother, but it's about sitting there saying, okay, what's the low hanging fruit here? So when you think about your life, your life is impacting you. You've put so many things that you're tolerating in your life as a priority over your personal health. So I recommend taking out a piece of paper. I'm a fan of having a notepad and write down everything you're tolerating from other people, what you're tolerating from inanimate objects. And then the third thing is what you're tolerating from yourself, and be honest with yourself, dude. To be honest, it's going to be uncomfortable because you're going to come up with 4 or 5 things out of each category. And you'll be like, okay, I think that's it. And you're going to be like, it's not. You're going to spend another week and really hone down that list and get all those things. Just be honest with yourself. That's the most important aspect of any self-improvement, is just be honest with yourself and decide you're not going to tolerate your BS anymore. And then look at that list when it's complete and sit there and say, okay, what would I feel like? What would I be able to do with my experience right now if I didn't tolerate a third of this stuff? And then pick that third that you're going to no longer tolerate anymore, because you're not going to take responsibility for yourself, so that life isn't beating you up. You're kicking life's ass. That's what we want you to do. But you got to take that proactive stance, brother. You got to sit there and put it down on paper, get real with yourself. And I've coached people through this process. The kids aren't going to help around in the house, and my husband's not going to do. No, you're going to get your kids and your husband to do that shit. That's what we're going to do. Well, I've tried before. I don't give a shit. We're going to try again, and it's going to happen this time because you got me up your butt. So that's kind of what they get with the no excuses coach. But I'm very passionate about that, dude. You got to have that big why, that vision, but you got to take responsibility, man. Nobody's going to come save you. There's no magic pill. There's no Amazon cure. If it took you 38 years of your life to get to this spot, it's going to take you 5 or 6 to get out of it. But guess what? Absolutely. Like you said, Sean, that time's going to go by anyway. And what about on the other side of that, to go look back and go, fuck, I went through all this stuff in my life, but man, I'm so glad because it made me the person that I am today. And that's what I think about my life, Sean. I've been to hell and back several times, and I'm thankful for every component of it, because I get knocked down and I get back up again. Learn something. Yeah, you do. You grow. And then I can help
Eric added, he feels like others want him to fail. Eric, wait, let me bring my microphone up, which I never do, and I'm going to get real close. You are right. Others do want you to fail. There are people that want to see you fail, me fail, Christopher fail, because they have failed and they don't want to do anything about it. So don't pay attention to those people. Cut those people, if you can, out of your life. If you can't, hold them at arm's distance. You know that everyone has family that doesn't think the way that they do when it comes to dreams, goals, and plans. Well, you've got to hold those people at a certain distance and figure out how to handle them. Christopher?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, to that point, I wished my sister well back in 2005. So I've helped a lot of people out with this fact. My sister left when I was 9 years old. She's 7 years older than me. So she was 16. She couldn't take my mother anymore. And I told you the story about me becoming homeless afterwards. Due to the internet, back in 2005, we reconnected. And I thought for sure that she left when she was 16. I stuck around with my mom, homeless and everything else. I figured she was going to be normal and happy. She turned out, long story short, it's in my book that's coming out in September, October. She turned out exactly like my mom. Went to the same profession, the same cats, the same everything. And after about 1.5 years of reuniting, I tried as a coach, like, hey, Maria, here's a way to get over this. Like, she asked me one day, she goes, how did you not turn out like mom? And I said, because I chose not to. And I've dedicated my life to learning how to be a different people person than mom. Mom was mean to everybody. I'm nice to everybody because I want to. I had to figure out how to want to be nice to everybody. I had to work on a lot of my own beliefs based on what I grew up with mom, but I changed. I still have those knee-jerk conversations that go through my brain. Trust me, I'm human, but I'm able to stop it and go, okay, Chris, you want to say that, but that's not really what's going to net you the positive result that you know that you want and you deserve. And so it was pretty crazy that I had to let her go because she didn't want to change. She did not want to change. So I wish those people well. You have to protect your space. You have to protect yourself. And when it comes down to family, I tell people to ask themselves this question. If this person wasn't related to me, would I want a relationship with them? Yes or no? And I personally believe it's okay to say no and to let them go. Just because you share blood, just because you share some moments does not mean you have to tolerate and put up with those people in your life. And I've helped probably out of all the people I've helped, that's probably one of the biggest things I've helped people do is to let go of people who had a hold over them based on the fact that they were family and they thought they had prestige and rights to give them opinions about themselves. Once they let go of that person, they let go of that belief about themselves, they became successful. So yes, you got to let people go.
You know, I firmly believe that we all have a calling in life, and regardless of the mental roadblocks and distractions, that calling is going to keep coming back and coming back and coming back. I believe that our calling in life is from God. It is how God made us to be. It is something, a vision that God has given us. So just know that when you're fighting that calling that the Lord has laid in you, all right, you are going one against God, spirit within you. You need instead to be leaning into your calling. And you know what? It's going to be uncomfortable. I mean, let me tell you, if you go back and look at Litvak, this is the 190th episode of Litvak Leadership. I was not this faith forward for the first 140 episodes. It took me writing my book to decide to be as faith forward as I am now.
Oh, yeah.
Quickly. And, you know, figure out what you need to do, something in your life that will set you free, that will allow you to walk in your calling. And the person you will become is someone you may not even recognize, but in a good way.
Love that. Amen.
See, and I was all set for you to leap.
Oh, I was like, I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, who are you living your life for? You know, when I ask people that so many times, I'm living it for me. And I'm like, give me 3 examples of how you're living your life for yourself. Like how do you figure you're living your life for yourself? Well, And then I just start peeling back the onion. I'm like, oh, well, I'm still doing that because I get my father's validation out of it. Oh, okay. So what would it feel like if you didn't need your father's validation anymore? Well, then I probably would do some different things. I'm like, if you did some different things, do you think you'd be happier? Yeah. Okay. So what is it that you're not, I don't want to disappoint my dad. I'm like, well, sometimes disappointment can turn into respect. Maybe they're disappointed because they had a perspective or an opinion that they wanted you to do, but maybe in the turnaround of that, to see you grow up and just take your stand and to own your ground for what's important to you. Maybe there's so many other opportunities for that person to change their perspective and change their belief of what's most important for you. And when you get people to experience that and to really experience it at a deep level, they can't unexperience it. They can't sit there and say, okay, I want to go back to the way I felt before because this feeling of independence, this feeling of freedom, this feeling of optimism, if you will, in an otherwise negative situation, they can't unfeel that. So once I break them through that part, now it's just a matter of getting them to gain that progressive confidence and that courage to be able to sit there and say, okay, what's the one conversation you've been avoiding having the most? Well, I've been avoiding talking to my husband because of this. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what the healing feels like on the other side of it. Because yeah, it's going to suck, of course. But on the other side of it, your husband's going to be committed to making this work, or you're going to have an answer for yourself to know that you can move on with your life. And either way, you're not going to waste the next 10 years of your life hoping, wishing, and praying that he's going to change when you haven't even talked to him about it. So let's just get that first thing under our belt. Can we agree to do that? And once you just start taking that, once the horse is out of the gate, then you force yourself. It's almost like that perfect accountability. Like once the horse is out of the gate, then I have to deal with this. Okay, so I'm going to go talk to my husband, and from that conversation, there's going to be a fork in the road. Either we're going to go to counseling or we're going to get divorced. And to see yourself on the other side of that, like, wow, okay. At least I would rather know now than 10 years from now and waste more of my life and have those regrets and have that resentment towards myself. I've seen people do it. Like, I've known this marriage is bad for 15 years. I'm like, okay, well, you're going to have to process that with your 15-year younger self, because you're going to carry around some shame and some resentment towards that. So make sure you give that person at that point, they were doing the best they could at that point. You're this person now, and you're supposed to have this experience now.
And yeah, absolutely. So Christopher, we've gone 50 minutes, which is just amazing. It seems like it's been so quick. For anyone who would like to contact Christopher, you can go to his website, noexcusescoach.com. You can email him at christopher@christopherrausch.com. If you want to get in touch with me, Sean.Litvak at Litvak Leadership. And frankly, we're both all over social media, and we're very responsive to direct messages. Christopher, thank you so much for being on Leadership Live. It's a great conversation. You and I definitely have the very same or similar visions, but the outcome, I think, is exactly the same, what we're looking for people.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Thank you, brother, for this amazing conversation. I appreciate you.
You bet. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. That's it. Everyone have a good week.